for the last 6 months in my house. I'm at the news studio of the Speakeasy News, as I refer to it. We're at Mac's Pub, and we have joined in solidarity with a couple of young men who lost their entire life savings when they opened the bar last December, and within 3 months they were closed from a lockdown. They emptied their 401ks, their retirement accounts, and everything else, and they just couldn't make it anymore. And their frustration level was so high, they said, screw it. We don't believe these orders by the governor are real. We think it's overreach, and we're going to defy them. And if we got to sell every last piece of food and liquor in here, go out with a bang, we will. And they really created a dialogue around the country that I think is starting to grow. But I'm not that smart. And that's why I bring these great professors and academics on. Joining me right now is a great friend of the show. She's been coming on Liquid Lunch almost from the beginning. Dr. Wright is with us. She's a politics lecturer at Princeton University. She's a research scholar. She's also the author of Star Power. First and foremost, I think Melania has been beat up and treated as awful as any first lady in the history of time. And if this election holds under Joe Biden being the winner, I think she really got dealt a bad hand by the press and the media. Was she treated even close to many of the other first ladies in history?
She actually got a lot of positive press, and I'm sure you'll push back on that. But the truth is, she's the most interesting person in the White House. She's the most popular. If she wanted to go out and do nothing but TV appearances and interviews, she could, and she's chosen not to. And so there's a lack of information about her, which is totally her prerogative, but people dig because they're interested. And it's just a balance every first lady has to make. Do I want to give out access and information to myself? Do I want to remain private? And it's much harder to remain private. And I think that's a lot of what has happened surrounding Melania Trump.
Solid. I'm not going to push back on you, okay? Dr. Wright always wins over Mr. Wrong. That's for sure.
I don't think so.
No, but I think my personal opinion is she knows she's interesting, and she knows that every time she does come out, she's going to take a lot more incoming from the left than she gets in positivity from the right. So I think she's kind of measured herself to when she wants to make news.
Right.
So I agree with you. She made herself a little less accessible, but I don't know. I feel like she's always dressed elegantly. She looks gorgeous. She carries herself to me like a classy woman. She doesn't try to steal the spotlight, and I feel like, another maybe first lady would be on the cover of Vanity Fair or, for her fashion style. And designers are actually getting mocked for giving her clothes. So I don't know. She got hurt. I agree with you. I tend to agree with you, but I think that's part of her plan. Now, what do you think about Jill Biden? There's big brouhaha that she's using the title doctor when she's not a medical doctor. I don't know. When are you allowed to use doctor for a PhD?
Well, it is a doctorate. And, I take a different position on that Wall Street Journal op-ed than most people do. I think it's good that it came out because I'm glad people see how mainstream and common that kind of inane opinion is. And it's something everyone deals with. And yes, there are bigger issues in the world and there are people suffering every day. But as long as this guy brought it up, then we'll have the conversation. And of course, everyone's going to be mad at him. So we're again having the conversation, and I'm sure we'll forget about it very shortly. She should be, of course, called doctor if she wants. She has a doctorate.
Okay. What do you think about chiropractors that call themselves doctors?
Well, if it's a doctorate, it's a doctorate. It's not a medical degree, but there are lots of different kinds of doctorates.
Well, my friend Jeff is a foot doctor, and he has the doctor of podiatric medicine on his license plate on his car. But I think that's a real I think that's a real medical doctor.
Well, I don't have that, but
Well, let me ask you this. I know you don't like to dive into politics, and I always like having you on because of that, because I know you're objective, and I know you have your ear to the ground what's happening on the more liberal campuses, but I know you're fair. No, I know this. So what do you think the opposing view to people like me, Democrats and moderates, what do you think the real view of people there is on these lawsuits and, allegations of voter fraud?
Well, there's a lot of really great empirical research on voter fraud. And so, if we just take the opinion out of it and the politics out of it and people who obviously wish President Trump won, there just is not evidence that there's widespread enough, extensive enough fraud to have changed these results. And it's really not fair, if you think about it, to think about elections in terms of if someone's vote share increased, that's evidence of fraud. If that was the case, then we would be saying Donald Trump's surprise victory, where he gained a ton over Mitt Romney's vote share in 2012, was fraudulent just because he made massive improvements. He did. He mobilized new people. He mobilized independents, people who hadn't voted for. And that's not evidence of fraud. That just means that he ran an effective campaign. And so if we try to take personal politics out of it and look at the situation now from that point of view, I think we should. And then I'll just add one more thing on top of that, just from a strategic Republican political perspective. I think this could really hurt those very important Senate races in Georgia. It could suppress votes. It could have many unintended consequences. And now is a time Republicans would typically benefit from some of the extreme policy proposals of Democrats. They can engage on these common sense debates, but as long as there's conspiracies of fraud and as long as there's QAnon and these types of movements, Democrats don't have to engage in policy. They can just say, well, look how crazy they are over there, and they get out of it. So there's also a political argument to be made that it's not beneficial to Republicans.
All right, I can understand that. So aside from being a great political lecturer and an amazing research scholar, you're also a world-renowned author, and you wrote the book Star Power. So you know a little bit about star power, I would say. Do you think if Donald Trump loses this thing, with 50% of the country not feeling confident about the way he's lost it, do you think that will contribute positively to growing his star power like a cult figure? Or do you think fighting this too long could actually diminish him?
I think it diminishes him. He did lose, and he's maxed out on star power. This is someone who came into the 2016 Republican primary with 92% name recognition. And people discounted that. They didn't even think of the fact that a lot of Republicans knew him, liked him, and that put him way ahead from the very beginning. And those types of things are simple. He has an entertainer's skill set, that translates very well to the campaign trail. And so we've learned these lessons. He's not going anywhere. Obviously, President Trump has demonstrated his ability to build a movement, and he has very passionate followers, and that's not going anywhere.
All right. So you don't think he can go up anymore? You think he's maxed out?
He's maxed out, probably, yeah.
And Lauren doesn't really weigh in that heavily on politics, but I see now if she is going to come down, she's going to be quite binary and say, he did lose, she said. Although it's not over till the fat lady sings, I think you're right. I mean, the Electoral College votes have been cast. There's still some stuff out there. People on, of course, Donald Trump's side are still floating all these crazy theories, but without some crazy act of God, I happen to think you're right, and we need to focus more on these two Senate races. But, I had on Dr. Joanna Massey a little before you. She's a professor of neuroscience at Columbia University, and she was saying that the way the brain works, you kind of pre-think about things that you want to happen, and you start writing this script in your head, and sometimes it happens. Like she was talking about how neuroscience and the laws of attraction could come together. In your view, if I start writing this script in my head every night before I go to bed that Donald Trump is going to win, do I still have a chance at it, or do I need psychological help?
I don't know. That's way out of my area of expertise. But I'm sure, what probably does happen is you're more likely to believe information that's in line with your own attitudes and pre-existing beliefs than that's counter to it. And so I think that's why it's important for all of us to try very religiously to put ourselves in other people's shoes, to imagine, would this be the same if it was a Democrat? Is it just because it's a Republican? How am I thinking of this situation from a way that confirms my existing preferences and biases? And I think social scientists absolutely need to do that too.
All right. Well, listen, I don't know what I did wrong, but we've missed you. And hopefully we can get you back in the rotation so that we could see more of you and get your great objectivity and voice on the show more.
Thanks, John. Anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Lauren Wright from Princeton University, author of the book Star Power. Go check it out. We'll take a quick break right here. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back with more from Max Pub in Staten Island right after this.